Welcome back to New Day, Wednesday edition, and the papers are ready. Daily Guide starts this morning and says, EC boss under fire. Kunedu Indum ran to court. Photographs of Madam Nana Kunedu Ajima-Rawlings, Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum, and Madam Charlotte Osei here. And that's what the paper says. Mahama Nana battle for Accra. We'll talk about these two stories on the front page of the Daily Guide. The Daily Graphic says, mixed reactions greet EC's decision to disqualify 12 aspirants. And it comes with a photograph of some lawyers and who are expressing their opinions on the disqualification of the aspirants. And then Indum Nana Kunedu gave EC 24-hour ultimatum. The story is captured on page 16 of the Daily Graphic. The Ghanaian Times says parties threaten action, but EC dares them. Madam Rawlings, Dr. Indum, and Mr. Ayariga, Hassan Ayariga's photographs already here. And another story linked to that issue, bodyguards of the disqualified aspirants withdrawn. The story is captured on page 17 of the Ghanaian Times. My guest this morning to do the talking to my left is an aide to the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, the spokesperson rather, of the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, Mustafa Ami. Good morning, and I hope you're doing great.
Very well.
How's your Accra tour doing?
Very well.
Going well.
Very well.
Grateful, and welcome to our studios. And to my right is Member of Parliament for the Damanga constituency, a member of the NDC, Adams Mutawakelu. Good morning to.
Good morning.
Are you with the president in Accra?
No, yesterday Parliament resumed, so
oh, okay.
all members of Parliament were.
You had to go to the floor. All right,
so
welcome.
We're expected to be there.
Thanks so much for joining us. So let's start with this one. It's been on and receiving reactions. Some lawyers are talking about yesterday. The two main parties in this whole saga, the NDP and the PPP, we're yet to hear from the PNC though, said that, for instance, for the PPP, Dr. Indum says the chairperson of the committee should give him just 5 minutes to perhaps attend to what he thinks went wrong. He is insisting that he doesn't want to disrupt the process by going to court. So asking that the EC chairperson allow him 5 minutes. Honorable Mutawakil, let me start with you. The position of Dr. Indum and then Nana Kunedu Ajima-Rawlings. NDP wants to go to court. Dr. Indum says, give me 5 minutes, let's clear the mess because I don't want to resort to the court.
So thank you very much, and good morning to our cherished viewers, and more especially the good people of Damango constituency. Yeah, the day I heard that almost 13 pieces were disqualified, I was shocked because 13 out of 17, but with time and listening to lawyers here and there, I began to make sense very well, because this is a serious election, and I believe that when you are in that race, you must do very good due diligence. Always ask questions. If you want somebody to sign your form, first ask and ask and ask again to be sure that you are getting the right person to endorse the form. 2, the signatures must be said that it reflects who signs the form. If the person is an illiterate and cannot sign, will thumbprint. But we have 2 types of errors: administrative ones and those that are offenses. They are criminal in nature.
Right.
And that we must distinguish. The administrative one may have a certain period in which you should correct them. You'll be given
before
the opportunity.
The day of nomination
yes,
is
you'll be given the opportunity to do the correction. And once that period elapses, there's no way the EC should give you another time. If he gives you one political party, then the rest will also ask for. And that is where I have an issue with PPP. Because if you now want 5 minutes to resolve, then the rest will also ask for 5 minutes. And if each party should ask for 5 minutes, you realize that the principle in which the EC took to disqualify you will be defeated. 2, if it is an offense, then that is a criminal offense, and therefore prosecution should go on to set as a deterrent to future flag bearers who want to fire. If not, we'll see this recurring often. So I always believe that once you are in the race, you should have. And that tells us that most of our political parties do not have the structures on the ground. Because if you actually have your structures on the ground, you have executives at every police station. I don't think we'll go through some of these difficulties these parties had, some of them had. Because if I decide that, oh, the chairman of every branch should endorse my form, I believe that that person will not endorse my form and go to another political party to endorse.
Or move to another district to do another endorsement.
And let me tell you, when you move to any community, you have some people, they will be the first to welcome you. They will always be the first. Doesn't mean that they are the opinion leaders of the place. So if you go there and you are in a hurry, they will endorse you. And another person comes, they will do the same. And sometimes they can even trail you if they see that there's some financial benefit in it, to make sure they follow to get the more financial benefit from it. So I believe that EC has the final saying that they have made their comment, but considering one will result to several, considering several other people. And there must be a point we have to say that is the end.
I'm grateful. Mustafa, so the NDP says it will go to court. And already Madam Charlotte says, well, we have taken the decision. That is a law, so we'll wait for what the court will say. Should the EC open up to these aspirants, have a chat with them and see if these things can be corrected?
Well, good morning to our viewers and to you. Frankly speaking, my attitude towards this matter is one of indifference. Okay? One of indifference for good reason. Number one is that democracy is a concept that is based on rule of law, as they say. In other words, that institutions and persons that operate under a constitution operate according to stated law.
Right.
And therefore, institutions like the Electoral Commission, that they operate according to the laws that guide them. And that those who preside over these institutions, even if they would have to use discretionary power, that the Constitution says that we should use discretionary power wisely, so to speak. That is all I care about. Now, Madam Charlotte Osei is arguing that, first of all, yes, there is absolutely no doubt that she has the power to do what she's doing.
Under the law.
Under the law, to either qualify people or disqualify them. So she's within her remit. But as to whether the principles upon which she disqualifies or qualifies people are soundly based on law, it's not something that I can determine. It's something that is for the courts to determine, and for those who are lawyers and believe that they are astute in the understandings of the law can make a pronouncement about. So I cannot make a pronouncement about that. The only thing that I can say to the politicians who have been disqualified is to extend my sympathies to them. The chairman of our Legal and Constitutional Committee, Professor Michael Quay, yesterday issued a statement expressing the same sentiments, expressing our party's sympathies for them, because it is not an easy matter to have campaigned for the past 2 years, going around the entire country, apart from the effort and the energy and the time, the resources that these personalities have pumped into marketing themselves and their programs so far, and to be disqualified can be disheartening. So to that extent, our sympathies are with them. However, law is law, and therefore we are hoping that those who have gone to court to challenge the lawfulness of what Madam Charlotte Osei and her Electoral Commission have done, that we expedite the processes so that it does not truncate the calendar for the elections or affect our electoral processes unduly, and etc., etc. So for me, that is my attitude, and that is the attitude that guides our party as far as this matter is concerned.
So, for instance, so the party is worried about the fact that it could affect the December 7th date?
Well, who knows? Because if, for example, whilst the case is in court, one of the parties goes back to the court to say, but well, whilst we are at this, can you place an injunction on the election until this matter is disposed of? Except, of course, that the courts themselves, realizing the enormity of what stands before us as a nation, decide to expedite the process. And I'm sure, of course, that a judge can sit on a matter every single day of the week to ensure that it is quickly disposed of. I am sure that perhaps would happen. But what it is that we certainly must all be worried as political actors as to the possibility of the truncation of the electoral process. But I'm not too sure that it will be truncated. I'm sure everybody would work expeditiously.
Including the courts.
Yes, which is what our Professor Michael Kwe has put out, that he's hoping that these things will be dealt with expeditiously to ensure that we put a finality to these matters.
All right. Then we won't believe at this point that we'll move on and allow the court, those aspirants who want to go to court to go, and then the court will take a decision on that. But let's move on and deal briefly with the battle for Accra. Nana Adodankwa Akufo-Addo is in Accra, and Mr. Mahama is also in Accra. And the story is suggesting that they actually took part in some campaign launches, Blake Massav, Ayawaso, and the rest. Mustafa, let me start with you. The campaign in Accra, I think this is about the third time or so in Accra. How is it going in shaping the party ahead of December 7?
Well, it's going well. For the fact is that Greater Accra has the largest numbers of voters. I mean, so that is known by
for a region.
For all the regions, I'm saying that region by region,
right.
Greater Accra has the largest numbers. I mean, followed by Ashanti and etc. etc. So for a region that has the greatest numbers of people likely to come out on election day and vote, I'm not sure that any party would want to ignore that. I mean, considering that the fundamental principle in politics is that politics is about numbers. Okay, so I can understand why the two leading presidential candidates are all in the Greater Accra region at this time, 7 weeks to the election. Now, secondly, Greater Accra epitomizes all of the problems that confront us as a nation and all the failings of President Mahama. Okay, because it is in Greater Accra that you can see visibly the challenges of employment, the unemployment situation. It is in Greater Accra that you see scores of young men and women who are roaming the streets, sleeping by the street sides without a job. It is in Greater Accra that you have sprawling areas of the capital who don't have drinking water. Okay, it is in Greater Accra that you have huge chunk of our people from the northern part of Ghana come and try to eke out a living, and the kind of deplorable conditions under which they live. It is in Greater Accra that we have huge challenges of power, where small and medium scale industries are closing down. It is in Greater Accra that all the multinationals are situated, and where the multinationals, because of power crisis, had to lay off workers and so on and dismiss people. It is in Greater Accra that you have housing challenges. It is in Greater Accra that you have many of the inner cities where there are no social amenities and etc. etc. So it is in Greater Accra that the failures of the NDC government are evident. Because the NDC government promised them what they called a better Ghana. But now everything has deteriorated. People's lives have gone backwards, perhaps 20 years backwards, and etc., etc. So life in Accra is really difficult, and therefore this is where the people need Akufo-Addo's message of hope. Okay, a message that says that we will manage the resources of this country in a very honest manner, in a manner that is fair and equitable to everybody. We are the ones that have a specific program to deal with inner city challenges like the Zongo Development Fund. And yesterday we were in the Ayawaso North and Ayawaso East constituencies, and Nana-Addo specifically told them that this Zongo Development Fund concept that I am talking about, inshallah, next year, January, when immediately we are inaugurated, the first budget that this government will do will have the Zongo Development Fund in it. And in it, money would be put in for addressing the challenges of the inner cities and so on and so forth.
How should the Zongo voter trust you this time, since the last promise you made of improving their houses were not fulfilled?
Well, I don't know about the last time.
When Zongos were said that houses there were going to be rebuilt into skyscrapers.
Really?
High-rise buildings.
Somebody said that?
It was in the NPP's 2012 2000 campaign, one of the promises.
Well, I haven't seen that.
Okay.
And I certainly was not involved in the 2000 campaign at this higher level, so I don't know what you are talking about.
Okay.
But setting up a Zongo Development Fund is not a difficult matter at all. The Zongo Development Fund is to address the basic challenges of the. It's not about creating a heaven in Zongo communities. It is not about building skyscrapers, as you said. It is about just ensuring that people have decent places of livelihood, that people can, that, for example, our Makaranta schools, which are mostly in the Zongos, for example, have basic furniture, have basic training facilities for our children, that our Makaranta school teachers are taken care of within the framework of Ghana's education system. Because the scores of children who are inside the Makaranta schools are also Ghanaians.
Mustafa, tell me,
so that's not
who supervise this fund? Who will be in charge? Where will it be? I mean, tell me all about how this fund is going to run.
Well, as for development funds, we have funds already in the system. We have EDIV, venture capital fund, etc., etc. So situating a fund is not the argument at all. The Ministry of Finance sets up the fund, and of course, you know that within our vision for transforming this country is, dividing the country into the zones that need uplifting. We've talked about the Northern Development Authority, for example.
Right.
That will be responsible for focusing on development in the northern parts of our country. We've talked about the coastal belt development, and then the Zongo development, and etc., etc., etc. So there are going to be development authorities that are responsible for managing the funds.
So there'll be an authority for the Zongo fund.
Well, I'm not too sure that in terms of the Zongo fund,
you need an authority.
Or you need an authority. I mean, it's just that we know that there is money that is set aside specifically for dealing with
the finance ministry.
Challenges.
So we can assume that the finance ministry is the administrator of that fund, kind of.
Well, but of course, I'm sure when it comes to implementing it, the president will definitely have either a body or a person supervising it. I mean, just like I'm not too sure how the administration of it would be done yet, but the commitment to doing it, it's
all right. Has the party thought about the district assemblies, the constituencies, and perhaps this fund, because all these institutions would have some money to spend? So has the party thought about that?
Well, of course. As for district assembly common fund, I mean, it's statutory. It's already there. Everybody knows how district assembly common funds are supposed to be sent to the district and disbursed and so on and so forth. But you see, our concept of development is that, you see, if you want to do the kind of development, what we call the bottom down approach to development, which is what we've been doing from independence, where people sit at the top and determine what people in various areas of the country need. You are never able to go in to develop our country. We want to put development in the hands of local people.
Of the people.
So that they determine what they need at any specific time. All your duty is give them the money. Because a lot of money also sitting in government hands, okay, at the top, is the recipe for corruption. It is the reason all of this is going on. And therefore, if you put the money in the local place, they determine their own priority needs. If somebody at the local place spends money, it is much easier for any government to take them on. Because, of course, I mean, there would be small fishes as opposed to what
big
happened.
Fishes at the top.
Big fishes at the top who gave all our money to Bawumia and are walking scot-free. I mean, because they are party bigwigs and nobody can touch them. So you don't want to put money in the hands of bigwigs who are untouchables. Give the money to the local people. They know what their development priorities are. And if they misappropriate them, it is very easy to take them on. So we want to make it possible for government not to continue to pilfer the people's money with impunity.
I'm grateful. I'll come back to you. Honorable Mutawakilu, so Mustafa says that Greater Accra epitomizes all the challenges that the country is facing, or all the failings of the NDC government. So perhaps Mr. Mohammed's tour of the region will be in vain, because if all these challenges are there, then the people are not listening to him.
Thank you very much. Yes, the president is in the Greater Accra touring, and he's doing quite well. He's the president, and therefore he needs to account to the people. And I believe that when he's accounting to the people, my colleagues will not say he's using projects to bribe the people, as they have been indicating. And as he talks, we're all aware that the issue of Kufuor gallons is quietly going off. Because when you go to Adenta, you realize that that has reduced drastically because now they have water. And therefore, when he goes to a place, he has something to say. If you go to this desalination plant, treating this seawater and giving to the people, it goes to hygiene, because the water is not polluted, well treated, Kufuor gallons. So that means that there was a problem. And he needs to let the people know that we are moving out of the problems. The president, in his 4 years, cannot solve all the problems. But he is somebody who will, very frank, will tell you where he has gotten to and where he's taking us to. Two, you all know that at Circle, very soon it will be commissioned, where the traffic that we used to waste there, man-hour lost, as a result of traffic, will be eased very soon, and therefore productivity will improve. Most of the roads have been tarred. At the Rich Hospital, very modern hospital has been constructed. He needs to let the people know. You see, I'm quite surprised that my brother cannot remember the year 2000 manifesto. I'm an NDC person. I have taken time to read their manifesto to know that in 2000, they promised that when they come to power, all slums, including Zongos, will be turned to high-rising buildings.
Is that correct? That's not true.
Well, he said he was not part of
saying that
any draft.
You cannot remember. That is what you say. And therefore, promising, go back and read your 2000 manifesto. Going back to promise them Zongo Development Fund, you need to apologize for deceiving the people.
I see.
Very, very critical. You need to go and apologize for deceiving the people. And therefore, this time, this is what I'm bringing to you.
Let me cut it.
If you push it under the carpet and behave as if in 2000, when those promises were made, we're not listening, we're not reading, then there's a big problem. Two, you see, the concept of devolution, as he explained, is being executed today.
Getting power to the people?
Decentralizing. That is why local government service came into being, to ensure that the district employ, and therefore more departments are being given to the district assemblies, the metropolitan assemblies, and the municipal assemblies, to a point where you can hire at the district level and fire at the district. That is proper devolution. And what they are practicing, it's not devolution. You set a fund, Minister of Finance will control. That is not devolution. Because they are district assembly. I had thought they will let them prioritize the project they will have at the various zongos, then they channel it through the system. And that is the same mistake they are making when they are talking of $1 million to one district.
One constituency.
Constituency. And said that they will set up a body so that the districts send their requests and what they need to the body will implement it. That is not devolution. Two, that is a concept of equality. Do you know what principle of equality? Everybody gets the same. But Ghana, you know that development is skewed. And therefore, some districts are more deprived and need to be supported more. So in that case, you implement the principle of equity, whereby the more deprived get, and make sure that the 1998 decentralization that we started is properly taken care of. And that is where you empower the district assembly. So if you are giving, let's say, district constituency 1 million, you now set up a body somewhere to implement it. Are you doing proper decentralization?
You said the president will be able to talk to the people on water. You mentioned dental. You mentioned testing on health. You spoke about the Rich Hospital. And in fact,
we have the Legon teaching hospital as well.
All right. On the productivity, you said the interchange will open at the Circle Up. What would the president tell the people of Accra on unemployment?
Yeah, unemployment is an issue. And the president has always made it clear. We have never said, as they indicated in their 2000, that all Ghanaians who are able and willing to work will get jobs. The president hasn't said that. The president knows that we have challenges. However, he's tackling it head on. As you're aware, 23,500 nurses have been employed in 2015 to date.
Some are still out there.
Some are still out there because we need to put the infrastructure in place. And that is why the Bolga Hospital is under construction, the Wa Hospital is under construction, Kumasi is under construction, the police hospital is under construction, Legon Medical is under construction, Rich Hospital is under construction, many district hospitals and cheap compounds. Because if the infrastructure is not there, how do you? And because previous government hadn't invested much in the infrastructure, that's why there's a backlog. Because if the infrastructures were there, they would have been posted immediately. But President Mama has expanded it. And in the course of expansion, you need to wait a little so that when expanded, more will be recruited and employed into this thing. And as you indicate, I'm very happy that the president is implementing year program, training those who are not skilled to be skillful, such that they can easily get employment. Because the president realized that one of the problems we face is that most of the youth are unskilled. And most of the places, there are vacancies. But getting the proper person to fix it, especially in the oil industry, is a problem. Therefore, he instituted this skill training so that while he's recruiting, more will be trained to acquire the necessary skills to be able to face the challenges. Two, the World Bank reported, and I'm happy it was used by Alan Charmante and Media Foundation for West Africa, analyzed it very well, that 48% of the youth between 15 and 24 are unemployed. And the Media Foundation for West Africa made it and relate to the statistical service. Because between 15 and 24 years, most of them are still schooling. So by the statistical service, it's about 13-point-something%
of youth who are unemployed.
Between 15 and 24. And they have analyzed it very well. You see, we don't make blanket promises as they made in 2000, that any Ghanaian willing and able. And I believe that if 2009, they had employed all those fulfilling their promise, It would have been great. But you know what they did? When they realized the election was getting close in 2004, and the youth were angry with them, they made them to go and queue and register, as if they were going, about 1 million youth went to queue and register, as if they were going to be employed, just to cushion them, so that they will be able to win election. The President Mama is not that type. He's an honest man. He's a frank person. He will tell you the truth, and he will tell you the plans he's put in place to ensure that the youth are absorbed at the end of the day.
I'm grateful, Honorable Adam Mutawakilu of the NDC, the Member of Parliament for Damongo. Let's move on to the Daily Guide this morning. It talks about this story and says that the vice presidential nominee of the NPP has revealed that government borrowings within the last 7.5 years stands at about $40 billion, but the total value of investment and infrastructure is just about $7 billion. So $40 billion borrowed, only $7 billion used. Now, he goes on to talk about other things. Quickly, let me go through them. Now, on taxes, Dr. Bawumia says there had been massive increases in the capital gains tax, in withholding taxes, VAT on electricity, financial services, real estate, special import levy, adding that taxes had been introduced on ambulances and bicycles. He said while the NHIS and the pre-maternal health system had virtually collapsed, youth unemployment was high and rising. He talks about teacher trainee allowances, nursing and health assistant allowances that have also been withdrawn. And he goes on to say that even the pension scheme is under threat. And that has resulted in a declining growth characterized by, in fact, he is saying that between 2012 and 2016, that is during his tenure up, the economy in dollar terms shrunk by 5%. He says under the NDC in the last 8 years, we have seen a growth in real GDP per capita by 17% from $1,266 to $1,481. This is with oil revenue under President John Mahama. He said under NDC, the figures were better, 1,266, on and on and on. Again, he talks about total debt that is up to about 110 billion from 9.5 billion where the NPP left. So that's Dr. Bawumia's assertions carried by Daily Guide. Mustafa Hamid, let me start again with you. He says that a lot of the borrowings that government is taking are dwarfed with corruption. That's Dr. Bawumia's assertion.
Well, I'm sure that when anybody talks about the NDC, they also know that their second name is corruption. So that is
you or everybody?
Everybody knows that.
Oh,
and I'll prove that shortly.
You are speaking on behalf of every other Ghanaian?
Yes.
Oh, I see. And you have their mandate to do that?
Yes. And I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you why shortly. But before I even come to that, my brother Mutawakil was talking about failed promises. This is a litany of NDC's failed promises as captured in their 2008 manifesto. I can't go through all of them. We shall distribute 30,000 computers to schools across the country. We shall establish a college of fisheries at Anomabo. We shall review the tax structure to reduce taxes paid by Ghanaian manufacturers to increase their competitiveness. Everybody knows that the tax burden on Ghanaians has increased. Facilitate the establishment of an industrial development fund. We shall rehabilitation and expansion of Accra motorway. Everybody knows that that has not happened. Construction of 2 new interchanges on the end of the motorway. We shall build hospitals in Garu, Kumewu, Sekendi, Takradi, this, that. We shall do 5 million. It's a whole lot. So as for failed promises, they shouldn't go there. Everybody knows about the famous 200 day SHSs, which have become 10. So 10 over 200 by the most liberal of lecturers is a fail. So let's get that clear.
Yes, we won't go there.
But what is more important is how a nation's resources are used. And let me even go beyond Ghana. All over Africa, it is established fact. Everybody agrees. The whole world agrees, except perhaps the NDC, that the bane of Africa today is corruption. Finish. clear and simple. This is the most endowed continent. Okay, yet we are the poorest of continent. It can only be about the management of a nation's resources, and therefore putting our money in trust is absolutely important. Listen, the November 8th, 2015, and the story is still on the GNA website. Okay, MTN Foundation inaugurates a 6-classroom block for 170,000 Ghana cedis. 170,000 Ghana cedis, including offices and a storeroom. 20 days later, 28th November 2015, Honorable Nia Afoti-Agbo inaugurates a 6-classroom block in the Katamanso without offices and without a storeroom for 510,000 Ghana cedis. If that is not corruption, tell me what corruption is.
Why is it corruption? These are
because they all bought the cement from the same market, the iron rods, except the NDC tells me that they import their iron rods and they import their cement from Dubai or Great Britain, and they bring the wires from the electrical cables from Britain and so on. And if they were doing that, it will be absolutely senseless.
Is that what goes into building a structure?
But what goes into building it? So how come that MTN Foundation is building the same structures that the NDC is going around building, and they are building it for 170,000 per unit block, and you are building for 510,000? Now you explain to me what that is.
I don't know, but I'm asking you if I'm building on a land at TV3 and you are building on a land at GTV, it could cost the same because it's the same.
And these are all rural communities. Katamanso is even more urban, perhaps peri-urban, than the one in Lower West Achim, where MTN Foundation built. So in terms of cost, comparatively, land is costlier here in the Greater Accra than it is in Lower West Achim. Everybody knows that.
So that's
exactly. So the land matter doesn't count at all.
For you, it doesn't count.
It doesn't count because land is costlier in Accra than anywhere else in Ghana. So the land is cheaper, and then therefore tell me for what reason you are doing it for 3 times. Are you following me? Now that is the number one issue. Number 2, the circle interchange that he's quick to refer to. That interchange, they told us that they gave it to the Brazilians on a sole sourcing basis. First of all, we were not under any pressure to award that contract. So the business of sole sourcing did not arise at all in the first place. So the fact that they went for sole sourcing indicates that clearly there was an intent to steal the people's money. That's number one. Oh, yes, for sure. Yes, because otherwise, the common sense law, as captured in the procurement law, is that you open a bid, you allow for people to come.
Parliament. I'll come to you. I'll come to you. Hold. Please go on. I'll come to you.
Sole sourcing. The law allows for sole sourcing only because there are times. For example, if there's a flood right now, and we are under pressure to provide blankets and tents and so on, then you can get one company to quickly bring you the blankets and so on to solve an emergency.
Okay, so sole sourcing isn't simply a way of corruption, but in some cases, that's what you're saying.
Oh, of course.
Okay,
now beyond that, it has now come out that apparently other countries, apart from the Brazilians, put in quotations for the project. For $72 million by the French. I think the Canadians for $78 million. So why would they sidestep these quotations and give it to the Brazilians for $178 million? I mean, clearly, they have made $100 million for their pockets. So you see, what motivates?
Because you cannot pinpoint any evidence. Just relax with they have made $100 million for their packet. I think you can make your allegations, but if you say
okay, on what basis?
Because you don't have the
what basis would you sidestep? On what basis? You see, there are two ways of knowing. There are 2 ways of knowing.
Right.
There are 2 ways of knowing. One, that which is empirically verifiable, and that which is logically feasible.
Great.
Finish. So for logical feasibility, the only logical conclusion that you can draw for somebody sidestepping cheaper quotations for higher quotations. Okay, especially quotations that have been put in by countries that are reputed to be more technologically advanced than the Brazilians. And then you sidestep them, and then you go for the higher cost by the Brazilians. Logical feasibility tells me that you intend to make some money. That's all. So it is logically feasible to make that deduction.
Okay, please go.
Are you following me? Now, more importantly, all our oil revenues, okay, per year is about $600 million. That's how we make per year from oil revenues. So far, we have raked in $3 billion.
Right.
Ever since we
started
discovered oil, $3 billion. Now, every year, NDC is paying interest on loans at 10.5 billion Ghana cedis per year on interest payments on loans alone. Under the MPP, we were paying 680 million on interest.
Every year.
Yes, every
year.
They
are paying
for interest, and they are paying 10.5 billion. So clearly, the elementary school student will tell you that the unbridled borrowing by the NDC has compromised the entire oil discovery. Because the reason we jubilated, even though they said that the oil was adrengo and it was not real and all of that. Later they accepted that it was not adrengo when they took off their lenses. Now when they realized that it was not adrengo, and then
I know you didn't take them serious when they said it. So you
well, but they took themselves serious, and that's the point. And then they take the oil, and then they basically obliterate the reason for which we discovered the oil, because interest payments alone on loans outstrips our entire oil revenues. So as they say in Ghana, did we go or did we come? You see, and the fact that for every government contract that they give, look, he was talking about Rich Hospital. We are talking about megawatts of electricity. Look, Egypt is constructing 1,800 megawatts of a gas plant at the cost of 1.3 billion cedis. Egypt. Abu Dhabi is constructing 1,600 megawatts gas power plant at the cost of 1.5 billion. Meanwhile, Ameri and Car Power is going to cost Ghana over 2 billion cedis over 5 years, and yet it is going to give us only 505 megawatts.
So ours is higher, and yet we are getting very little.
You are getting 505, and you are spending 2 billion.
And so
Egypt,
again,
Abu Dhabi, and the rest of them.
By using the logical feasibility, you think something has gone wrong.
So, of course.
All right.
If this is not corruption and stealing the people's money, then I don't know what it is. Okay. Otherwise, they should explain to us why you can't just go to the market and procure a machine that will give you higher megawatts of power at cheaper, and then you go and procure all of these for more money, and yet you get less.
And that's
power.
what Dr. Bawumia talks about.
Absolutely.
Borrowing draft with corruption. Okay, let me put this question to Honorable Mutawakil. So he says that if you look at all these projects, if you look at the cost, perhaps with what they have done, the same project, the cost of it, what your government is doing, logical feasibility says that something has gone wrong.
Thank you very much. I have a lot to analyze, so just give me small time and I'll analyze. One, you see, he couldn't quote the date they advertised for competitive bidding of the Circle interchange, because it is a project tied. It is tied to the project. Just like you go for a loan from a country, sometimes they tied it to a contractor. And that he knows. And he knows very well.
Okay.
That sidestepping process of procurement was done very well under their regime. This one is a tight project. The country giving you the money, recommend the contractor you should use. They stayed there that we construct.
So there was nothing we could have done.
That is what I wanted him to have said. They advertised it on this and these people be there for that.
Okay.
He couldn't quote that. They said there that we had. Procurement was ongoing.
For Can
2008. Kufuor came in with Chinese and they abrogated the process and awarded it to Chinese. Very well.
You don't have the evidence.
There is evidence.
So no, you don't have it.
There is clear evidence. That brought about...
Perhaps...
No, that brought about Agbeshi, Woyomi issue. because there was a process of procurement. He came in with a contractor, abrogated what did his sole sourcing. That is where we call abuse of power. 2, you see, I want to hit more on Bawumia. You see, when he made that statement, he never referred to the Global Corruption Perception Index, because that is an internationally recognized body which placed Ghana at 56. They should tell us whether they've been able to beat the 56th position in the world. Are you getting my point? So if it comes to corruption, they promise zero tolerance for corruption. And they came to admit that corruption started during Adam's time. President Mama said, yes, corruption exists, and he needs a holistic, all stakeholders on board to fight it. And therefore, he set up NACAP. You see, he set up NACAP, National Anti-Corruption Action Plan. He did it and setting up offices at the various districts so that if you have anything of corruption, go and report. He's been somebody who was pursuing his own people to ensure that who has indulged in corruption in the courts. They said, how will I sue my people because my party will collapse?
Shraj recently said that the president has flouted his own code of conduct by accepting it.
It is a principle. It's a policy, not a law. You have to be very careful. And I was surprised our deputy minority leader tried to blend policy with law. He said Ghana...
Isn't it a bad example?
It's not a bad example. Ghana, he said Ghana has a total debt of 40 billion. Meanwhile, Bawumia admits that the debt to GDP ratio is about 70%. He admitted it. Debt to GDP. Now, if the total economy as of 2015 is about 160 billion, convert to dollars, is $40 billion. If you use the exchange rate of 4. And our debt is, as he indicated, is $40 billion. Then the debt to GDP ratio should be 100%. Oh, this is simple mathematics. As of last year, end of last year, the total weight of the economy is 160 billion cedis. Let's reduce it to dollars. Let's convert it. That's $40 billion at the exchange rate of 4. He's saying that it's 40 billion. Then 40 over 40 times 100 is 100%. Then meanwhile, he admits that 70% is flawed. Investment in asset that we borrow to chop. Let me just go to the $750 million they borrowed and mention the items. And we see whether they are borrowed for investment or they just borrow it and consume it. Thanks to Fifi Kwete yesterday, setting the record straight. We are still waiting for them to come. $750 million. 107.2 million is payment of pension and salaries for July 2008.
They used to pay pensions and salaries?
Yes. 107.2 million was used to pay pensions and salaries for July 2008. You borrow international money and you use it to pay salaries.
This information is available to the public?
Yesterday, setting the record straight.
Or from
available. It's available.
Okay.
So that I've never heard them come up with details of the expenditure of the 750 million dollars they borrow from the international market. 6.8 was to use to facilitate the payment of salaries for November 2008. $75.5 million was used for the payment of NYEP and MASWOC. Are they capital expenditure? These are recurrent. $10 million was transferred to government machinery for government to use. $14.8 million, which is about 56 million Ghana cedis, was used for the payment of judgment debt to construction pioneers. $62.8 million was used to buy electrical consumables. $13 million was $13.6 million was used to pay spare parts. 55.6 for issue in right. They should come and analyze it and show the percentage of that is used in investment. Let me go back to our 2014 Eurobond. $300 million was used for capital expenditure. $200 million was used for matching. Do you know matching? That is counterpart funding. And I can say that when they brought the prospectus when they brought the prospectus for it, analysis, I realized that it was used to pay counterpart funding for rural electrification. 250 was used for GIIF, Ghana Investment Infrastructure Fund. 250 was used for that. So you could realize that when we went for Eurobond, we brought a prospectus to Parliament. Parliament scrutinized it so that it will be a standard by which you can match whether the money was used well. And that is a government that is transparent. Bawumia should take this data of the 750 million euro that they borrowed and tell us which part of it is used for capital. The only one I can realize to be capital is $30 million they used to buy 2 diesel trains. And you know what happened? They bought the trains, no tracks. How can you buy 2 trains without tracks for them to use? And meanwhile, that is the period they set up what we call Ministry of Railways.
So your point is that
being the head of it is Honorable Amir Konfi. And at the end of the day, prioritize. Do we need the tracks first before the trains? And they decided that we need the trains first before the tracks. And President Mahama is currently constructing the tracks. And in their manifesto, they will say they will construct Accra, Kumasi, Paga Railway. Go back to your 2000 manifesto promise. You have the same statement there. That was never honored. Oil revenue.
Wrap up. 1 minute.
Oil revenue. Yesterday, I was with Kokufu. If 3 billion, let's split it and see. First, GNPC takes 40%. The rest last year, we reduced it to 30%. GNPC. So calculate 3% of 3 billion. That's 900 million. That's 900 million to GNPC. Leaving what? 2.1 million. 70% of the 2.1 million goes to FDFA. That is annual budget funding amount. That is 1.4 billion if you calculate it averagely. The balance of the 30%, 70% goes to the stabilization fund, 70% goes to the stabilization fund, and 30% goes to the heritage fund. So the money that is actually used is that of the annual budget funding amount. Until recently, the Ministry of Finance capped the stabilization fund and then brought in this endowment fund, contingency fund, and tie part of it to Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund. So if you look effectively, what government had is in-house out of the oil for this period of 3 billion is 1.4 billion. So when our colleagues tend to lump everything as if this 3 billion was handed over to Ghana, to the government of the country, use it the way you want. We established, and Parliament passed the law, Petroleum Revenue Management Act. And the government is working in line. So when they segregate it and lump it and say we had 3 billion, as if 3 billion was given to President Mahama and he didn't do anything. No, some of it, we have it as savings. Some are given to the national oil company to invest.
Would that be wrong in it saying that even the letter that's come to you, you're misusing it?
We are not misusing it.
You used some of them to brand buses and it became an issue?
You see, if you go to the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, 21(3), I think, asks that the Minister of Finance specify the areas of investment that the money will be used for. One was the amortization of loans. And as a result, we have this Atuabu gas plant. So last year, it was taken out. One was into energy, modernization of agric, and the capacity building and all that. So the branding falls under one of the headings. So it is given to them, and they were supposed to use it, not necessary in the energy. So if there is misappropriation, and the president has taken an action, and they have refunded it, that is a precedent that is ready to fight corruption. And not somebody who will say, oh, I cannot sue this person because if I sue him, my party will collapse. No.
I'm grateful. Mustafa, so a quick reaction. I'm running out of time.
Yes. Between Fifi Kwete organizing a propaganda press conference and Kwabena Dufo writing to the World Bank to account for the use of the Eurobonds, every average teacher all over the world would trust Kwabena Dufour's pronouncement on the use of the Eurobond to the World Bank, because that is when you are not likely to lie, not when you have organized a press conference. So I'm quoting from excerpts of Kwabena Dufour's June 15, 2009 letter to the World Bank on the utilizations of the proceeds from Ghana's Eurobond. He says, and I quote, "Non-concessional borrowing in 2007 was mostly used to raise energy capacity, and that of 2008 is being assessed out of the $750 million borrowed."
It's being assessed.
In 2000, I'm coming. In 2000.
Okay.
Oh, please. But I need to show. I need to show.
Yes,
in 2000, in the form of Eurobonds, $595 million had been disbursed as by January 2009. Now, Kwabena Dufour says the proceeds were allocated primarily to support public investments in the energy sector, and according to the following distribution: $286 million for investments by VRA, $134 million for investments by ECG, $54 million for investments in the Bui Dam, $31 million for the government's equity investments in the West Africa gas pipeline, $90 million for public investments in road infrastructure. This is Kwabena Dufour. He's quoting Fifi Kwete. I'm a lecturer. Anybody coming to write an exam and quoting these sources, two sources, every average lecturer would cancel out.
You see where I have difficulty
for themselves.
You see where I have difficulty.
So hold on.
Okay, I'll come to you. Just take 2 minutes of my business time. Yes, please.
So Kwabena Dufour gives the lie to what they are saying. Now, secondly, he talks about buying a train before
tracks.
A train. What did he say?
Okay, coaches before getting the tracks.
Before tracks.
Yes.
They have built a sugar factory that doesn't have sugar cane to feed the factory. No. The people in Elmina are telling them that they would have needed a fruit juice factory because what they have available is oranges, and their oranges are getting rotten in the farm. You see, at O levels, we did something we call location and localization of industries. O-level economics. They don't even understand location and localization of industries. So they don't qualify.
But you know the factory is working.
It's working. It's working. You know definitely it's working. They brought samples here. But you know sugarcane is seasonal.
Right.
We believe that
you
seasonal.
don't let us go.
But the second one is, this was an interim report. You realize that the 2008 election had a we went through it until somewhere 2nd January.
Right.
And because of that, the time frame was tight. And they needed an interim report. And after that, they did an in-depth report.
Okay, so you are saying that
this was an interim report.
Okay.
There was no time. But what I'm saying is that, have you ever heard them coming out as to what they use the money
for? He just told us.
No, they coming out.
Mustafa has just told us
That was an interim report because during that time, there was no time for them to do proper assessment. So you have to always submit an interim report and then submit a final report.
And the final report.
So
yes, this is the final report.
Changed the investment.
The interim report. And the World Bank will understand that when you take over governance, you want power in 2nd January. Then 7th January, you hand over. You will not have all the details.
I see. Okay, now 2nd January. Let's assume that it was done 2nd January. Now this is Kwabena Dufour's budget statement to Parliament, 2000, pages 92 to 93. Kwabena Dufour says, Madam Speaker, as part of the measures to address the power crisis in 2006-2007, which lasted over a year, government supported the expansion of power generating capacity. These were 226 megawatts of energy power plants concurrently on standby after the power crisis, and 80 megawatts of power plant by a consortium of mining companies. Madam Speaker, a number of power projects were initiated as medium-term strategy. You see,
let me tell you. The 80 megawatts wasn't government investment. We call it mine reserve plants.
Okay.
That was a plant set up by the mining companies.
Government didn't spend money on it. No. That's what he's saying. That
mine reserve plant, the 80 megawatt is a mine reserve plant.
Funded by government.
You see, you are confusing.
You just allow him.
But let me see the energy data. If you go here, 41.8 crude oil for importation for January, that is energy. Okay. That is crude oil. You could have gone to raise a letter of credit from the banks instead of using a Eurobond to buy crude oil.
Okay.
That is energy.
The point I'm making to you
wrap up
is
for me
that
now.
you are saying that
Consumer 62.8 electrical material.
Allow
That is energy.
Mustafa
But they are
to wrap up and please, Mustafa, please go on.
the point I'm making is that he's saying that Kwabena Dufour's letter to the World Bank was not well thought out.
He said it was an interim report, not that.
But that's what it means, that it wasn't well thought out. Because whether it is interim or not does not preclude you from saying what is true. Interim reports are not reports based on fiction. Interim reports are also reports that are based on fact. But now he's trying to say that this particular interim report was not based on fact, merely because it was not well thought out. Well, not well thought out because they were in a hurry. Exactly. So that means you didn't have time to think it out or to find it out. So that premise is conclusive. Now, a budget statement is what you have time to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, and therefore, if you have a budget statement that came later, that was well thought out, that supports the letter that was not well thought out. How does anybody still come to the conclusion that?
All right,
I'm saying that if you
I am
that,
grateful,
that
gentlemen. I am so grateful.
The mine reserve plan was
last 3 minutes. Let's wrap up last 3 minutes.
So it has nothing to do with
1.5 minutes for you, 1.5 minutes for you, and then we wrap up.
You see, that is what I'm saying. If you take the details, you realize that crude oil is energy.
So they spend some money on energy.
But is it capital expenditure or recurrent? That is number one. 62.8, electrical materials. Is it capital expenditure or not? You understand my point? So they have spent money in the energy. But is it what it should be used for? To import crude oil for consumption?
You are paying $10 million every month.
Okay.
You raise letter of credit.
Power and co.
But Ameri becomes our plant. Ameri becomes
good.
Our plant at the end of the day. That is an asset.
Your colleagues in other countries are building higher capacity power plants for cheaper.
You don't look at the geography of the country.
Geography.
The geography of the country is very important. Let me tell you.
Sometimes I want to join your party and see whether my logic will change.
I'm sure Honorable Adam will welcome you.
Acquiring
All
land
right.
is a problem.
I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful, gentlemen. I'm so grateful for your time there. Adam Mutawakil is a member of parliament for Damagu constituency, a member of the NDC. I'm sure your people are watching. Say hi to them before we wrap up.
I'm most grateful to you people. And I'm here representing you.
Yes.
And I pray that, inshallah, come December 7th, you re-elect me to represent you in parliament.
All right. I'm grateful.
I'm most grateful.
I'm grateful. Mustafa Ahmed
My conclusion is that. But you allowed him to wrap up.
Oh, yes. Okay, you go ahead. I was also going to introduce you to wrap up.
My wrap up is this, that to the Ghanaian people, on December 7th, it's a very simple choice.
Okay.
We want you to make a choice between whether your life was better off as of 2008 and now. If your life has improved, your businesses are progressing, you are able to pay your children's school fees and etc., vote for the NDC. If life has been bad for you due to mismanagement, corruption, and the naked stealing of the people's resources, vote for Akufo-Addo, an honest man who will put your money to good use.
I'm grateful for your time this morning. It's a Wednesday, but wish you all the best in the course of the day.
President Mama will be coming back if it is based on that.
All right.